You may be greatly offended by this video, but if you just hear me out for a few minutes and consider what I'm about to say, you may adjust your beliefs about yourself and others. At least, maybe a little. Okay, here it is. You're naturally selfish, and so are most people around you. The Bible calls it the sin nature. I'm Nathan Collins, bringing you the truth of Christ in a post-truth culture. Now, I'm going to be focusing on people in general in this episode and not specifically on the relationship between a Christian and sin nature. That will be for a future episode. Not understanding the biblical view of sin nature is huge. Not applying the assumption before dealing with people in this world is a monumental mistake and is going to lead to some big confusion and shattering disappointments. Worst of all, not knowing this fact will leave you with no tool to cope or deal with this reality you continue to encounter. If you go out into the world expecting people to be naturally neutral toward themselves or even sacrificial to themselves for your needs, you will be sadly mistaken. This may sound obvious to some and will be new to others, but I believe a majority of both groups don't actually apply this known reality consistently. Take this scenario. You are moving and you would like help to pack up your things in the truck. So you call your neighbor, who you know pretty well, and see if he'll help you. He says no. You are a little disappointed, but not majorly, because you have a friend that lives a few miles away. You call him, and he says he can't. Their family is busy. You then are feeling upset that these people who you know wouldn't come help you. And you can't believe they would all say no when you so clearly are in need. Now, we've all been in some situation like this before, where we can't believe the actions of others and how they didn't help or pitch in. I'm here to tell you that you are suffering from a failure to understand the human condition, sin nature. Why can't you believe they wouldn't come help? Think about it. You really can't believe they wouldn't spend their whole Saturday throwing away their own plans, the only day they have off, to come wear themselves out for nothing? Would you do that? The real situation you should be caught off guard by is when the person says yes and comes and helps you even though they have little to gain for doing so. That is the anomaly, not the rule. There is a reason there are moving companies all over the place. The reason you are wanting to spend your time and energy in packing up everything is because you're getting a new house. And the reason the moving company can help you move is they're getting money in return. Both parties have some self-interest in the situation. That's why that works. Understanding that generally people do things based on what's in it for them is important. If you look at kindness as the norm and unkindness as the exception, you are going to make a big mistake when dealing with people. I see this happening not only with myself, but also all those around me when we start off assuming people will generally act in a selfless way in all situations. Even though this isn't reflective in my own life, yet I assume others will reliably do it. Miscalculations on governing or managing people will also happen if you think the people who you are dealing with are basically good, or at least neutral in their human nature. Let's look at another example of how not factoring in for sin nature can go awry, but on a larger scale. And say, the government? They're always full of evidence that displays a failure to understand sin nature. Let's take a peek into the government agency HUD as they attempt to supply affordable housing.
With so many people struggling to find housing, we wanted to see how well the program's been working. We analyzed available data about the primary tax credits given out over the last 20 years. And here's what we found. From 1997 through 2014, the number of units produced has fallen from more than 70,000 to less than 59,000. But the program is costing taxpayers 66% more in tax credits. That's after adjusting for inflation. The estimated rise in construction costs only accounts for about half of that.
What could possibly go wrong?
We asked representatives of the tax credit industry about what we found and reached out to more than 20 top investor and syndicator firms. None would agree to an interview. But in written responses, the industry said that several factors have affected tax credit production, such as the loss of other federal funding or soft subsidies, and the increased costs of trying to help the poorest renters. They also claim the business is less profitable than it used to be.
How bad could it
These are
get?
just our numbers, right? And
We took our findings to the group that represents the state housing agencies that oversee the program.
I think there are good reasons that the program's produced fewer units. And some of those is that we're trying to produce more units in areas of opportunity, areas that are perhaps more expensive.
Okay.
We're also trying to do things like ending homelessness. So the low-income housing tax credit program has a 30-year proven track record, and it's produced good housing that's very well run.
But not everyone is convinced.
This ought to be good.
Republican Senator Charles Grassley is investigating the program.
My suspicion is that there's a lot of things wrong with the program. It may not be serving all the people it should serve. There may be people in the middle getting more than they should. You would think that this would be something the IRS would be looking into because they have to police to see whether the money is serving the purpose it's supposed to serve.
And are they policing?
No, they aren't. There's only been 7 audits in 29 years. Well, if you aren't following the money, how do you know that the low-income housing tax credit is working?
Sin nature matters. Understanding and accounting for sin nature is extremely important. Multiple investigations of this program have found a significant amount of developers that are criminally abusing the program. Developers, who are humans, not only can make good money, millions of dollars legally from doing these developments, but they still have a desire for more. And knowing that they won't be caught, they create schemes where they get the construction cost and then tell the state a much higher cost, many millions over the actual cost of the development. And this in return gives even greater earnings to the developer. Not a complicated scheme, but works and can go unnoticed for a long time because of how small the state's housing agency is that is supposed to manage the hundreds of millions of dollars. The IRS likewise depends on these small state housing agencies to report anyone doing wrong. HUD's human management strategy against developers stealing tens of millions of dollars in states is that they sent a statement encouraging people in the community, if you see something, say something. HUD's hope is that states, communities, and investors work together to make this program happen. That would work if, of course, that's right, we lived in some other universe where people were angels. Sin nature is easily proven so many times, but the constant refusal of this fact, no matter how obviously true it is still hard for people to concede. It signals a very bad diagnosis for us humans. Needless to say, there is still a housing crisis in the United States, especially in the big cities. Remember, the foundational error here of not assuming people have a sin nature and are going to act accordingly will mean that the government will always fail and never have any ability in their worldview to correct their course of action. HUD continues to make a plan based on the help of a certain type of mythic human they will deal with that doesn't exist. So they will keep making the false assumptions, and they will keep failing to accomplish the social plan they set out to achieve. The Bible and what it teaches matters. Sin nature is real, whether you acknowledge it or not. The quicker you realize this, the better off your understanding of reality will be. That's all for this episode, but if you like this episode, go ahead and subscribe and check out the other episodes as we address different issues in our world and bring you the truth in a post-truth culture. Grace and peace, brothers and sisters.